When you just graduated high school, what did you think you'd be doing at this point in your career?
I thought I was going to be a TV host on HGTV. And I thought that I was going to take over for, I don't remember the name of the show, but there was a guy who had a show where he had 3 different design options that he would show these couples for remodeling their homes. And I thought he was really old. And I said, oh, well, perfect timing. He'll be retiring one day, right? And I could just take over his job, as if someone who was 17 at the time could just take over someone's job. I loved homes at the time. I thought I was going to be an architect or an interior designer. I always wanted to do something creative. I looked him up current day. I think he was about 50 years old at the time. I thought he was this super old guy and I thought he was going to retire any moment and I could just take over his show. Like HGTV was just going to hire me immediately. I had big dreams.
That's good. And lots of, what's the word? Not aspirations, I guess, right?
Yeah, I definitely was. I was one of those kids who thought, and I think this translates to today too. I thought that I could, aim for the moon and that I would reach it, but I didn't know how to get there. I was always really afraid to put myself out there. I think that definitely shows up in how I help others because I want to take them under my wing and make sure that they're not afraid of putting themselves out there. You can realize your dreams or this, dream business you have or whatever it is, but you do have to get uncomfortable. And that's the hard part of business is getting uncomfortable.
How much do you think that mindset of, reach for the moon contributed to getting you to where you are now?
I think mindset is probably the biggest thing. So I think it contributed a lot, and I think it still has room to keep contributing because there's still ways that I hold myself back even to this day. I think that, I definitely worked in a corporate role for a long time, and that does condition you to only do your role and not step outside of it. I think I always made my roles really creative. Like even if I was in a sort of quote unquote boring corporate job, I tried to bring a lot of creativity to it, but we still are kind of conditioned to keep it segmented out and not doing too much and not trying to change the world in one swoop. But for those of us who are aspirational and we do want to, do big things, that's tough to stay in that box. So yeah, I think even if you have that mindset and you have a good mindset and you do take this leap and you leave corporate or whatever it is, you start a business, there's still mindset work to do for sure.
Do you think that's like while you're in the corporate world, you just never felt like you fit in?
I fit in socially. I always had friends. I always, like I said, was super creative. I would do graphic design projects for people on my floor. That was kind of my side business while I was in corporate. But it was funny because I was kind of working on other people's businesses. It was like, I'll do your logo for you if you want, but I'll do it for free because I'm trying to build up my portfolio here. So I always had sights on something outside of corporate. That's where I feel like I didn't fit in. The work was semi-creative, but I had to make it more creative. I used to always say back then, I am satisfied in my job, but I am not fulfilled. So there's a difference, right? Like you could be satisfied in a job and feel like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm making a paycheck. That's great. I like my coworkers, get good corporate perks. I had a job where I traveled a lot. That was really nice. But am I fulfilled? Is this my dream? No. That was kind of the difference.
So it's like you knew you could be doing, I don't want to say more, but like there was more on the table for you to grab, would you say?
More on the table for me to grab, more of my creative talents to go see, like what does that even translate to? I think that's kind of a curse that a lot of us have if we're creative. It's like, how do we realize that? How do we actually put that into a business and make money from it where we're not hating our creative abilities? Because once you introduce income into it, it's kind of like, oh, it's not fun anymore.
It takes all the fun out and all the back end stuff. And
it does.
Yeah.
But I think you can have a good rhythm with it where it's still fun. But yes, I think that, being in corporate and kind of being trained that way, I felt, yes, I'm in a box. Yes, I want to do more. I always wanted to do big things, even within my role. And people kept telling me to stop aiming for a 10, stop trying to change the world. You can't do that here. It was like this constant hampering down of your abilities, or at least your vision. I'm one person. I can't change a multi-billion-dollar corporation in one swoop or in one project, but I had big dreams or vision. And I think sometimes that dream goes to die when you have a corporate job or you're kind of held. And there's nothing wrong with a corporate job, of course. Everybody likes that stability and safety. And that is a nice thing to have. So nothing wrong with it. It's just I had aspirations beyond it.
When you think back, is there a specific moment or like a canon event that made you think, all right, this is enough. I'm gonna quit my job or record that first video. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
moment?
quitting the job was, I'll tell both because they're separate, definitely separate events. So quitting the job was, like I said, I had a job where I traveled a lot and I loved that job. I had great friendships and everybody trusted me. You know, you build relationships over time. You've been there for a few years. Everything's great. Good situation. I left that job for another job that was much higher paying, but way less satisfying. And while I was there, I didn't like the company culture. It was like a gossipy place where it was very like who you knew, but also people would go around people, you know, the typical places of nightmares. So I knew I wanted to leave. I was trying to stick it out for a year. And I thought to myself, how can I possibly interview some other place? And maybe I end up in an even worse situation. So that was kind of the fork in the road. Do I start something of my own? Is this the time? Or do I possibly just go to another company and end up maybe hating it more? Who knows?
And then just starting the cycle again, right?
Starting the cycle again and feeling that awful feeling of being at a job you don't like. I mean, this is the worst, right? So I actually had one of my old leaders was in town. We grabbed dinner and he told me, you know, you should do consulting or something. You're really good at what you do. You'd totally be capable of it. And I don't think that I was thinking up until that point that I was capable of it, but that was the second person in a span of a couple months who had told that to me. And I said, okay, if other people believe in me, why don't I believe in myself? That's wild. And so I did it after two people had encouraged me. I said, you know what? I'm just going to text. I'm going to send a text to a few people that I used to work with that I know control budgets where they work. If I were to go independent, do the same work I did for you full time, would you have a project available for me to work on? And both said yes. I only texted two people. They both said yes. And I said, that's enough for me. That's enough for me to start a business. If I know I have two clients ready to go for long-term projects, I'll do that. So that was kind of like the first sort of leap. Video still took me a while. Video took me a while to get used to. Yeah.
Right. So after sending those two texts, is that the business you said that was kind of like freelancing a little bit where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically I was doing the same work that I did full time. And I'll give you years also so you can have a timeline here. I left corporate at the end of 2018. So this was sort of the end of that year. I started my business January 3rd, 2019. That's when I started working on those two projects, or at least starting the process of working on those. By that point, I was thinking, okay, I'll do this contracting thing where I'm consulting with them. I'm doing very, very similar work to what they already know me as, and I will figure out the rest later. At least I've left corporate and started a business. That is huge. And I knew pretty immediately that I wanted to do something a little bit more fun, maybe even working with smaller businesses. You know, I didn't want to do the same work I did full time, but I didn't know how to. It is so interesting to me because a lot of people do freelancing and it's lovely. It's a great place to be. You have a lot more time freedom, but it is another huge leap to go start something from scratch where it's just you representing yourself, which is what I do now with the video business.
Do you think that like first freelancing step is necessary most of the time to like get past those initial fears?
I think it's a good first step because you learn to promote yourself and to say, this is my work, this is what I'm good at. And I think those are great skills to have because it is hard to talk about yourself, especially again, coming from corporate. You're trying to share the equal, with your team and everything. And you're not used to being, it's not showboaty, but it feels like that at first. Oh my gosh, who am I to talk about my work? Like I'm something special, but we feel awkward about it. But you do need to promote yourself. I think the phrase is closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're not talking about your work and what you provide on a constant basis, people aren't going to have that virtual invitation to work with you. And that's something I'm still learning even to this day. But yes, I think it would be a great step for people, but I don't think it's necessary. I think as long as you are in some place where you have income coming in and maybe you're doing your business on the side. It is tough though. It's tough to balance both. So you could be in a corporate job, but have your business being, started up on the side, and you work on it on nights and weekends and whatever it takes. This is tough work though, to balance both.
And like, how did you deal with the idea of like, I don't know, maybe that specific family member who might be a little bit unsupportive, or, I mean, even your boss, like when you pictured your boss coming across your content, like how did you deal with that uncomfortable feeling? I
think that part was the part that really got me. I never had an unsupportive family member or friend. Both my parents are entrepreneurs, or were at some point. Like my mom had a business at one point, and my dad has been a business owner his entire career, pretty much. So that part was fine. They also trust me, and they know that they assume that I know what I'm doing. So, and then friends, really the only difference is sometimes friends will say, well, you're always working. You're a workaholic. And it's like, well, if I don't work, this business doesn't exist. So I should be working. But as far as the other part that you asked, you look at LinkedIn, which is where I started. I did a lot with Instagram, but it was a profile that no one was really following me on. I did a lot of practice to get better at video on that platform, on Instagram. But truly, my audience was on LinkedIn. That's where all my old coworkers were, all my old bosses, really anyone I had interacted with throughout the years. So my thought in putting video out there, I had done video work for my actual jobs, but when it's your own content and it's just your face and no one is saying, Sarah had to do this video for me. No, she's choosing to do it and choosing to put herself out there. And that is a very vulnerable place to be, because especially on LinkedIn, you are worried about what every single old coworker, enemy, frenemy, whatever is going to think of you. So I thought of my old bosses, any leadership that I've ever worked with. And I'm telling you, a lot of them have reached out and said, wow, that's really cool. Or that's amazing to see you on camera. It's like we're in the same room together again. I mean, I never would have predicted that they would have been so supportive. So for someone just starting out, like who has that experience that you had, do you think it really comes down to just trusting yourself more? I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah. I think it's hard to trust yourself in like a modern society where we're always seeing people that we think are better than us, or we think are performing better than us. And we really never know what's going on. So I often tell people to not worry about video when it comes to, like, we scroll these other apps and we see people that go viral and we think we're not capable of that. We don't trust that we have the skill or the will to do it, but we're seeing the most viral videos on a consumer app. That's totally different than putting your face, to represent your business on LinkedIn and doing maybe like a talking head, just talking about the services you provide. Like you said, what was it? The empty mouth doesn't, closed mouths don't get fed. That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I don't know if it's truly saturated, but people say the online world is saturated. There's so many businesses doing similar things. You do have to have like something slightly different than everybody else, at least to some extent. But you do have to promote yourself all the time and talk about and repeat yourself a lot. And I think that is a tough thing for a lot of people who maybe you are in the position where you're new at business, or you're thinking about starting a side business, but you don't trust that you're capable of it. Well, then talking about your services or what you do or what you love doing over and over and over is going to seem like a huge leap for you right now. Yeah. I mean, I heard something once that was like, people need to be reminded more than they're taught. Yes. And I guess like for us, we get bored of, or we write out LinkedIn article, for an example, right? And we talk about this, like the same three things over and over again. We'll get tired of it before our audience get tired of it. Do you think that's true? Very true. If I work one-on-one with somebody and I go through their whole video strategy, or it's really their content strategy and how video fits into that, I will try to tell people to repurpose and recycle as much as possible. So even just, you mentioned an article, I've done it where in my own content where I write an article and maybe I have 3 main points in the article. Those 3 main points can also be standalone pieces of content. You can also have a list of 5. Maybe you don't reveal all 5. You just reveal the 3 and then you say, okay, get on my newsletter list for the other 2. And you kind of do like a little teaser. You could do a video for each. You could do a video for the whole list. You can keep that running for months if you want and keep talking about that same, 3 topics or 3 subtopics over and over and over. And there will still be people who have never heard it. You've said it so many times and they still have never heard it.
How often do you think you need to be putting out video content? Like, to someone who might be really busy but still wants to put themselves out there, is it okay to just do it once a month? Because I hear so many things where people say like there needs to be 3 posts at least a week, or at the very least 1 post a week. What do you think about that? Like, how often?
I don't think you have to be on video that often. I think you need to show your face every so often for trust building. I think once a month is perfectly fine. I think I'm about once a month because I'm so focused on my clients' videos that I forget to do a filming session myself. And it just falls behind, as many things. You're juggling so many things. I put myself last in that regard, but I do need to show up on video even more often than I am. But you can batch record, and I think that's people starting out probably don't realize that they can do either a recording session. You can grab a friend and ask each other interview questions on a recorded Zoom chat or whatever tool you want to use, and you can split that up into clips. Cut out all the ums and all the parts where you tripped over your words or whatever. And that's a super simple way to get on video because you're talking to a trusted friend. You can get 10 clips out of something like that. In 30 minutes, you can get a ton of little clips. You could do a LinkedIn Live and it doesn't have to be on LinkedIn. It's just a live stream. And sometimes people are more comfortable with a live stream. Other people might think a live stream is very over the top and extra, and they don't want to do it because it's scary. But all these things, I try to get people to start with long form. You're sitting there for 30 minutes at least, and you're recording 30 minutes of footage, whether that's a live stream or something recorded. Now you have material to last you for a couple of months, depending on how often you're posting something. But yeah, in my recording sessions, I can get 8 to 10 videos, let's say. I can even, a lot of times I'll aim for a lower number. Oh, we'll just record 4 videos. We end up having more. The conversation ends up going off on a tangent, things happen, and they end up getting more videos. And then you can just schedule maybe 1 a week, and you've got pretty much 2 months of content, which is pretty amazing. Yeah, you definitely don't have to be on camera all the time. That's for sure.
That kind of brings me into my next question. At what point do you start putting out content? Because at least for me, when I was starting out, I had, all that overwhelming stuff. Like, how do I get my first client? I don't have time to be making content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At what point do you justify the ROI you get from, either whether it's text or video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's tough too, because it takes more than just content to get clients, which I think it used to be the other way around from what I'm hearing. I dabbled in LinkedIn. It also depends on the platform too. I dabbled in LinkedIn years ago, and then I quit the platform and I came back. So I'm hearing that 2021, 2022 timeframe, you could just post content and you'd have inbound clients all the time, which sounds like a dream. But so the ROI there would have been, 100% amazing. But now it's like you don't have to post as often. I definitely see a lot of people saying just post twice a week just to be consistent. But focus your efforts on commenting and meeting new people. And that could be a set time during the day where you're not going overboard. Maybe you just set a timer for 20, 30 minutes. It's kind of like a workout. You just get in that 30 minutes that you can, and you kind of put on your no excuses hat and say, I got to do it. It's part of the process. So yeah, I think content can be a lot, especially in the beginning, because you're second guessing. You're second guessing yourself. You're taking forever to write a post, even if you're just doing written word and you're not doing video or anything like that. Even that could be a huge undertaking as far as time. I do think it's worth it for visibility, recognizability, trust. it's almost those intangibles. You can't really measure it, but you know it when you hear it. When people say, "Oh my gosh, I've seen you everywhere on LinkedIn," or "I saw that video that you created and it spoke to me," or whatever. You're going to hear little bits of feedback like that, but harder to measure than, number of clients or number of inbound clients.
So would you say that's the way to measure it really? Like, is over time you start getting those little bits of feedback? Like, that's how you know you're doing something right?
I think so. I think for some people that are more numbers oriented, that's going to be hard for them to wrap their mind around. But it does give you that little push to know that you're in the right direction. I mean, if someone says they recognized you from LinkedIn and you previously were not putting content out there, then absolutely, that's a huge win. If you were not present on that platform, they never would have seen you. So yeah, I think that's a win. I think inbound is also something you can measure because that does come from your content. But like I said, it's a lot harder to get inbound these days. I still get some inbound, but I do have to have I have to open up the door for a lot of conversations, which I consider outreach. So
with all these big names out there, like you said, to someone just starting out, it can kind of feel saturated. Like, it feels like you're going up against Joe Rogan or, some of those huge names out there. Like, how is someone like me or you supposed to compete against that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would even say you probably don't want to compete against them, or you don't want to be in that stratosphere. I know it sounds great. Like for me, for example, I definitely see people on TikTok that do these short videos they blew up in 2021 or whatever year it was, where 2020 to 2021 when TikTok blew up. There are people who now have book deals. They have their podcast. They are, definitely self-made millionaires from the TikTok uprise. And I look at that and I'm thinking, I should have got on TikTok sooner. But I think there's also a downside to being that out in the stratosphere. You're going to get a lot more hate and trolls on the internet if you have that big of an audience. And I think, of course, they have to tune that out. But the bigger you get, the more problems you have, I think, from what I understand. So I would say maybe don't try to compete with those folks, but maybe take inspiration from them, because you can have a nice, comfortable, cozy, nice business with a very small audience and not have to deal with the riffraff of something huge and still have constant wins. I mean, you can have a win every week that's like, wow, I did that, or wow, I had another podcast guest that was amazing, or I published this article, or whatever it is. And those could be little wins that keep you feeling like you're growing, and you are growing without having to be on the, for YouTube, MrBeast stratosphere, for podcasting, Joe Rogan stratosphere. Like, those are such high stratosphere people, but maybe it's drawing inspiration from the way they started, knowing that it is kind of saturated and you don't have to be this, number one on the charts in order to still feel successful.
You said something about like online trolls and hate. Have you ever faced that personally?
No? I haven't, and I'm afraid. I'm afraid because I know it's coming at one point. I mean, at one point it's going to happen, but LinkedIn, it's so rare to experience that on LinkedIn. And I'm talking about, semi-professional. I'm talking about video, but in a professional context. Mm-hmm. So it's not like I'm talking about, let's bring TikTok to LinkedIn. I'm not saying anything like that. I think that would probably bring some random people. But LinkedIn is really good about showing this could be two-sided. They're good about showing your content to the people that you're already connected with and have already built trust with. But of course, you always want to be in a place where you're adding new people to your network. There's wonderful people on LinkedIn. They're real people. Their real identity is tied to their profile. So I think there's less likelihood of a troll or somebody nasty. But I am starting to do YouTube next year. I'm going to be planning, in the next month or so. But I've already committed to it. I'm not backing out now. But I know that there can be a lot more weirdness on a more public platform where people can be very anonymous. So I definitely don't care as much as I did a year ago, which is great. I think the more you put yourself out there, you're like, I have my people. I don't care what some random person on the internet says. And I think if you're going to troll somebody online, you probably don't have a whole lot going for you.
And I know for me, the frustrating part is like my logical brain knows that. It's like, this guy's a loser.
Yeah.
But
Like,
yet,
who is
you
this?
still care though for some, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you can't.
And you focus on that more than the positivity
Yeah.
you get. You can get 1,000 positive comments, you get one negative, and you're thinking about it for 24 hours straight. You can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah. So you said that you've come a long way since a year ago when it comes to caring about that. Why do you think that is?
I think building a corner of the internet for yourself, you know, I have people that I know would have my back if something like that did happen, or I just know that I have people that that I've worked with, whether they're a client or they're a collaborator, or we've just done a coffee chat, or maybe I've never met them. I feel like I have people in my corner. I've built my own little community, you know, community, audience, whatever you want to call it. It's great people that I feel close with. And I feel like that matters, to have community. It's not just me floating out there saying all these ideas that I have. It's people responding to it and engaging with my content. And I think that feels like almost a cocoon in a way. Like that's my safety net, is knowing that I have an audience.
And then over time, like, it comes back to the self-trust. Like, you see enough of that and it reinforces that, I guess, right?
It does. Yeah. Yeah. I trust myself because other people also trust me, but then it's the circular thing where I get that positive reinforcement. I'm a words of affirmation person. So if someone tells me, wow, that was really great, or I mean, this is like the epitome of LinkedIn, is people telling you, oh, great post. I live for that. I get a total dopamine rush from that. But yeah, I mean, just it becomes circular. People validate what you're doing. Oh, this is so needed. Or, you know, even if they don't become a client, this is so needed. I've had a lot of people say, I wish I could afford your services one day, you know, and that means a lot too. It's people feeling like they want what I'm offering and they see a need for it in the marketplace. And that makes me trust what I'm doing and trust that that big idea that I had was a good idea.
For someone just starting out, what do you think the sign is that, like, or what do you think a good sign that their idea has potential?
Earlier this year, when I first started being fully video, that's all I was talking about. I wasn't talking about training or learning anymore. And I was doing that little switch. I had a lot of conversations with people about, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Do you think people would be interested in that? I wasn't necessarily asking them if they would be interested. I think because I was afraid, like, what if they said no? They said, do you see that as something that would be, that people would enjoy? And everyone kind of said, yeah, that's actually a really great idea. I've never seen anything like that. Or maybe they said, you know, that sounds so easy, you know, a no-brainer. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm on the right track. But even if you didn't have a full-fledged idea, if you were just kind of thinking, I think talking to peers, I think that's the value of having a community or an audience. You could just get on LinkedIn or whatever other platform and make friends and ask friends from a friend casual perspective. Hey, I'm thinking of this. People are so supportive. And I've also got great ideas from people. Hey, what if it was like this instead? I mean, why not, right?
Everything seems to come down to that, at least from what I've experienced so far. I mean, like, that's why we're here right now.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So,
yeah, you put yourself out there. You commented on a lot of my posts. And, you know, you see the same name or the same face over and over, and you start, that's just one of my people. That's someone I know. Even if you don't actually know them, you feel like you know them, and you feel like you can trust each other and exchange ideas. And it's, you know, a good thing.
You can relate in the way that you're both building something, right?
Absolutely.
Like you said earlier, it's not for everyone. The creative way of life, or the entrepreneurial way of life, isn't for everyone. And if you're just by yourself, like, you can get lonely. So
yeah,
actually, have you ever had to deal with that before, or have you always kind of had that network?
I think when I first left corporate and I was doing consulting, freelance, that kind of thing, that was pretty lonely. And that also was during the COVID years too, because I started my business in 2019. The first year, I would say 2019, I was kind of bored. Like, I had those 2 projects that I mentioned, and I was almost trying to figure out where I was headed next, but I was so heads down in it that I was like, okay, what is next? I don't know. It could be anything. And then in 2020, obviously the pandemic started, and it was like, okay, well, now everyone's kind of, my clients that I had, they were sending people home, and I was doing a lot of training for sales teams that were normally out and about. So all of a sudden it got a little less work on my plate. And I did have friends that were in the same field as me. They were also doing contract work or consulting, but it was only a handful of people, and only maybe one or two of them I was close enough with where we talked on a regular basis. So I feel like that part was pretty isolating. I definitely think when I got back on LinkedIn and I recommitted to being on there consistently, that changed things for me, because that feels like talking with coworkers, even though you don't all work together. It feels like walking into a building or a networking event and seeing a bunch of people, water cooler chat, whatever you want to call it. That's what it feels like, but on a virtual level. It still can be very isolating, though. I do miss going into it. I hate to say I miss going into an office, but I miss the social aspect of having coworkers. But I wouldn't trade what I have now.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the hardest part has been overall for you?
Obviously putting myself out there, and that I don't think of as a hard part anymore, but there are different levels to it. So first, it's creating content, being okay with getting 1 or 2 likes in the beginning and not having that validation, but still keeping going. And then it becomes, okay, now I have to create a service or product. What if everyone hates it? It's like that self-doubt that keeps creeping in, but you're still putting yourself out there. And then it becomes selling. And I think a lot of us are not used to selling and promoting ourselves and, kind of representing ourselves. We're not representing a mega corporation's product where we can say, oh, yeah, this thing over here. No, it's us. Like, we're almost selling ourselves and representing ourselves, which is a very hard thing. I would say I'm still wrapping my head around that. I think that takes a while to fully get over. It just takes more repetition, just like anything else. But I'm getting to the point where it's like, I know that my services are worthwhile. I know that I have happy clients. It's all good. So, I think probably selling is the hardest part. It doesn't come natural to a lot of people. I do hear that selling is just helping. And I think that mindset reframe helps. But yeah, it was a new thing for me.
Is there any other major mindset shifts that you think people just starting out need to make?
So no one cares is a good one, but that's a good thing. I would say no one cares, but that's a good thing. So you're worried about old coworkers. You're worried about your family members. You're worried about people making fun of you. You're worried about a lot of things in the beginning that don't matter. Like, no one has a microscope to your work. No one is dissecting your work. Really, truly, people don't even remember what you posted. I have people that I know comment on almost every single thing of mine, and they don't. I've had conversations with a few of them, and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that that's the thing that you do. But you comment on all my stuff, you see it all. So even your closest followers or audience members, community members, whatever you want to say, don't see 100% of your stuff. So that should be pretty freeing to people, that people are not taking that close of a look. And then the other thing is, people are very supportive. So I think that's a good mindset shift. I think that one only really helps once you see proof of it, though. You kind of got to put yourself out there and say, oh yeah, that's true. People are supportive. So yeah, I think removing the ego a little bit, which is tough. Like, perfectionism is actually an ego thing. And that was a tough one for me to swallow, because I am a perfectionist, or I guess I can call myself a recovering perfectionist now. It's ego-based. It's worried about myself and myself only. And that's not where I want to be. So once I heard that, I was like, okay, I don't want to be a perfectionist anymore.
Right? Because like in your mind, you're like, oh, I want to be a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I want to strive for perfection.
Yeah. But it's actually a selfish act to be a perfectionist, because you're worried so much about yourself that you're hiding your talents or your ability to help other people, and you're not freely giving that back to the world. I've heard some quote a long time ago. I don't know exactly how it goes, but something about happiness and giving back to others is like such a thing of joy. Like, it brings you so much happiness, fulfillment, all of that. if you're so worried about being perfect, you're going to come across way too polished, way too authentic. People aren't going to be able to, inauthentic, sorry, way too inauthentic. People are not going to feel like they can relate to you. And I think you'll have actually trouble growing in that case.
That's good. There is kind of a certain amount of preparation you got to do, right?
For sure.
So like, where's that line?
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are perfectionists are still going to do good work because that's just innately part of who they are. You're not going to completely abandon the quality of work. But I will say, actually, let me bring you back to when I first started that 100 post challenge last year. That knocked me completely off of the perfectionism, path, because the whole point of that was to not worry about perfectionism, it was just post 100 times. And that's quantity, not quality. Now, I still made sure it was quality, but I was more focused on quantity and hitting that 100. Then I could worry about, okay, let's tweak it from here. But by that point, it doesn't matter. You've done 100 repetitions of one thing. And now you've built that muscle and you don't have to worry about being a perfectionist because it just comes more naturally to you. I think maybe perfectionism also comes from a little bit of insecurity, like, oh, I'm not good at this thing yet. I have to get better at this thing. And I think the best way to get better at something is to focus on quantity, not quality, which is so crazy because someone being a recovering perfectionist, oh my gosh, to say quantity over quality, that's so backwards, but it does work.
That's really good. Yeah, it's funny because you said a bunch of things so far that I'm like, oh, I thought that, like it's relatable. So thank you so much. What are your thoughts on AI generated content?
I think two things at the same time. I think that it's cool that we have these things at our fingertips. I think it's cool to play around with it. Some of it's very gimmicky. It's not really anything that, you would use professionally necessarily. There are AI accounts that I scroll through on Instagram that look really cool, and they look like, a virtual world of sorts that doesn't exist. And that's cool. It's gimmicky, right? It's a novelty. I think for the video world and in my world, human content is the most authentic content. And I think it's a way to build trust. Obviously, getting on video is a big trust builder. And I think it's going to be a deterrent if you're using like AI avatars and things like that. Again, it's okay every once in a while, a gimmicky thing. Oh, look how cool this was. Oh, I tried out this thing. That's fine. But if all you do is AI generated video and you never show your face, it's going to be harder for people to connect with you as the business owner or as the person behind the brand. Also, if they meet with you, let's say they meet with you for a coffee chat or for a discovery call or something, and they've never seen your face. It's such a difference when someone has seen your face on video over and over and over, and they know who you are and they feel like they trust you. You go into that meeting feeling a lot better about meeting the person because you feel like you already know them.
So you think like it's kind of the more people that use AI, it becomes more of an advantage to the people like us who are actually being authentic? Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think, and a lot of people are saying this right now, that the more AI video we have out there, it's almost like human content, human generated content, if you want to call it that, is going to become more of a something that we crave, something that we want more of. I think it's almost like email. When email first came out, it was a novelty. It was great. Yes, it was part of our lives. We could, now it's very much a part of our lives. It was probably a gimmick back then. And probably people said, oh, email, what do I need that for? But now, like a handwritten letter to somebody is so special and so much more meaningful. And email is not meaningful in most cases.
It's like kind of making it more refreshing. It's like resetting it, because after video or let's say TikTok took off, it kind of felt a little saturated, right? Like we've kind of talked about, but now that AI is coming in, it's like resetting it and it's refreshing again.
Yeah. Yeah. And you could stand out a lot more by having, your face on camera, and it could be something as casual as just TikTok style. I think TikTok, that's the difference in the platforms, is TikTok is more, you tell a story or it's stream of consciousness. You could talk for 10 minutes straight and somebody's going to watch that video because they're just wasting time on TikTok. It's a very addicting app. And then Instagram is a little bit more polished, but becoming more casual for sure. And then LinkedIn is a lot of talking head content because you do want to show your face because you and your profile and your professional presence.
So for someone just starting out who maybe hasn't found their brand yet and don't really know or doesn't really know where they're headed, but still wants to put themselves out there, do you recommend them to just go ahead and do it? Like for me, one of my concerns was, what if I grow into like a different kind of person one day, or I decide I want the podcast to have this feel for it. The first feel that I first put out, that's always going to be out there. What if someone finds, like, you know what I mean? Like, what if I have two contradicting brands out there eventually? Like, is that a relevant concern, or is that just me overthinking?
It's you overthinking, but I did the same thing.
Okay.
And just like you went back into the archives and you saw an old podcast that I did when I was still talking about training work, that was my old world. Not to say I still can't talk about it, but that was my old world, was corporate training and learning and how we can do bigger and more exciting things with that. And so that old podcast clip is still out there. And also a lot of my old content is still out there looking like that. And you grow. And I think people know that you grow. And I think most people are not going to go back in the archives unless they're researching you for something. And I think it's very normal to do pivots, many pivots in your career. I think ever since I left corporate, I've probably pivoted 8 times, which is crazy. That sounds like a lot, but it's little things. It might just be a product change, like, oh, my service changed into this service or something like that. I think it's very normal and very natural to keep pivoting until you find your footing. And even then you might still change. And I think that's perfectly okay. So yeah, if you're just starting out and you're worried and overthinking about the grand plan, I wouldn't do that. I did that and it made me delayed by so many years. I could have been creating content in 2019 when I started my business, or even before that. I don't think I would have done it while I was still in a corporate job. That would have been too scary. But yeah, I could have started on TikTok in 2019 before the boom. I could have done all these things. But that was during a time when I was overthinking, okay, what's the plan? Let's get the plan done first. And I think that just holds people back, is over planning and overthinking. Those used to be my main 2 things. I had to kick those to the curb.
Which, I mean, the more you start doing, right? Like you start small and then like you said, you grow that muscle over time.
Yeah. And then you look back and you're like, what was I thinking? What was I doing?
So to someone watching right now, what's one thing you would tell them to do to get them started? Like the first step, like they could be terrified, but this would be a good step.
I think, and depending on platform, I'll just take LinkedIn as an example, because that's where we know each other. Commenting on other creators' content. The reason why is if you contribute a really good comment, and now the comments show you how many impressions your individual comment got, which is really cool. It's good information, because if you are on, let's say it's a big creator and you just write a comment, agreed, I also think that or to add to this, you're adding a thought to something that they've already said. You're contributing something. You're not just saying great post and moving on. But let's say that gets a lot of impressions, or maybe you get a lot of likes on that comment, or maybe even some comments back to you. You know that there's an audience for that somebody found that interesting. You can then turn that into a post later because you know that subject was enticing for somebody. And I think that's a nice little indicator for someone who's new. Just start commenting. If content creation feels like a big undertaking, and it can feel like a lot in the beginning, just leave some comments. I do know that commenting can feel very scary in the beginning too, when you haven't started. So you're saying if someone's starting out just now and they're hearing this, that might feel like a scary thought, but on LinkedIn, people are pretty supportive.
It's like a good, safe training ground.
It is. Yeah. Training ground is a great way to put it. I think for me, my training ground for video was on Instagram, but it was an account nobody was following me on, but that was for video. So that was very specific to what I was trying out. And I was trying all the trend audios. This was back in 2021, 22, when it was really popular to do lip sync videos. And so that was really easy for me to go experiment over there, make that my sandbox. And then I could figure out where I was headed with video from there, but I wasn't going to experiment on LinkedIn with video because all my bosses and all my old coworkers were there. So yeah, pick one that's kind of like a playground for you. And it feels like I can experiment here and feel good about it.
So would you say that Instagram gave you like a good way just to get used to seeing yourself on camera? Because like that was a big thing for me. Like you see
Yeah.
yourself on camera, it just feels weird.
Yeah, I think so. And I started the account with, it had 0 followers, and I wasn't intending, I just figured if any bots follow me or whatever, that I think I crossed 100 followers, but like, it wasn't anyone I knew. There might've been a couple people that I knew that were just being supportive that found the profile. But other than that, it was like probably bots and other small accounts that were just cheering everyone on that they found. But yeah, I treated it kind of like, let me gather all the saved audios, and then just like I would batch 10 videos at once, and then I would do them individually. And it was also a place for me to air my grievances about corporate training too. So at the time, it was all about corporate training and why aren't we doing these more fun? If you've ever been in a corporate job and you've taken a training, a lot of times it is pressing the next button until the module is done. It's not very exciting. It hasn't changed in like 20 years. Again, like I said, when I was in corporate, I was trying to make things more creative. So this was my way of saying, hey, what if corporate learning did this? What if they TikTokified their programs? What if they had new hires come in and do a day in the life video, like a 60-second video, and everybody could watch that video, and it was like, here's what you're supposed to do at this job. Why wouldn't you do that? It's so simple, right? And so I was creating these videos, either talking about that or doing a little trend, making fun of, like a trend audio, making fun of something. And it was sort of a little outlet for me too.
How important is it to have like a corporate job or some job experience in general before you take that leap?
Yeah.
Like, do you need it?
I don't think you need it necessarily. I think it helped me tremendously. I do know of people that have never had a corporate job and they've done perfectly fine, and in some ways they're ahead of me. They don't overthink as much, I think, because I don't know, the overthinking thing could be just innately part of who somebody is. But I do think that, like I said earlier, if you're in a corporate job, you're used to holding yourself back, maybe not speaking up at meetings, maybe not promoting yourself or putting your hat in the ring for a promotion or whatever it is. Yeah. So I also think the corporate world is changing quite a bit. I think it used to be a safety net and a great place to say, okay, I'm making income, but then I have my side business and I'm learning things at both. And maybe what I'm learning over here can help me over here and vice versa. But I do think that it is changing where it doesn't feel as safe. I think the safety net is truly the personal brand that you're building for yourself. Even if you don't have a product or a service, and you're just talking online, making friends on LinkedIn, and becoming known for some area of business, whether you have a product or a service or not, I think that is more the safety net these days, because you can represent yourself and you can create a service or product at any point in time, and you'll already have that base. Yeah. And that's what's most important, is the audience or the base. You could have the most wonderful idea in the world. If nobody knows about it, you're never going to sell it. And if you have a huge audience, but you don't have anything to sell, well, you won't be making any money. But then the moment you do roll something out or warm up your audience, I mean, there are people out there that I'm sure have maybe even hundreds of thousands of followers because they just say funny things on the internet, but they're not selling anything. That's fine. But the one day they say, hey, I'm, creating this program, would anyone be interested? And they're just kind of putting feelers out there. You better believe they're going to have a lot of people interested because they've built trust.
Right. And I know there's so many like bigger brands, so I don't really know if we want to compare them, but I mean, even MrBeast, for example, right? Like he was just a YouTuber, and now he has all these, he's just starting massive brands left and right because of that following that he has. And
that's the outlier. So I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll be the next MrBeast or whatever. And I think, of course, you want to be inspired by these folks, but sometimes it's a fluke. Sometimes it just happened that way, and their videos got pushed by the algorithm. And of course, I'm not denying that that's huge, massive. What is it? 444 million followers he just hit. Like crazy. And he wanted 1 million. That was like the goal, right?
Yeah. So I guess it depends all on like the individual goals too. Like you don't need to be at that level. Yeah. You can still accomplish your goals just doing what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. It does feel sometimes like people come out of nowhere and it sounds like a overnight success. It's not, because you're not seeing the beginning. You're not going back in the archives and seeing what their first video looked like. You can if you want to, especially on YouTube. I do love that you can sort by oldest and see what the very first video someone has on there is. But yeah, it's interesting how some people feel like they pop up overnight and they're this huge success, and it's just, you haven't individually heard of them, but they probably put in years of work to get there. I think it's hard to be patient when you see stuff like that.
Then you start comparing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you wonder, well, why is my stuff not blowing up? I'm doing great work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are you working on right now? Anything, you're building anything specific?
I am. Yeah. So I have a one-on-one program where I help people go from, I call it invisible to iconic. I basically take them from no video content, not putting themselves out there, to a place where they have a video sort of workflow going, where they can create videos and know what their sort of area is that they want to talk about, and build that muscle. You know, get out of their own way, first of all, and also create kind of like a system where they can, do a long form recording session and have a bunch of clips, kind of like we mentioned before. And I do that one-on-one with people for 8 weeks, but I'm actually creating the online self-paced version of that right now, which is really cool, because I've realized that a lot of people like to do it on their own and in their own time. So if they work with me directly, it's more of the accountability and the partner to help them get on video. But this new version, which is self-paced, will be them doing it on their own. So they'll still be learning all the principles of getting on video and all that good stuff, but it's still up to them whether they're going to do it. But a lot of warm-up activities, a lot of simple ways of getting on video, a lot of activities to search for content that they may already have at their fingertips and they don't know that they have it. So really just a great way to enable them to get on video for the first time and then keep getting on video.
We could find that on LinkedIn, right?
Yes. Yeah. I have a waitlist link on my profile right now. It's coming out soon. So maybe by the time this is out, it probably will already be published. So you can see that on my profile at any point. It'll be definitely promoted. It'll be a nice way for people to get on video in their own time without having to feel that pressure. And I felt compelled to have an option like that. Of course, if I'm working with people one-on-one, it's going to feel like they have somebody that's holding them accountable. So if you're that type of person, that's what you would want to do. And if you're the type of person that wants to, personally, I kind of am a DIY person. I would maybe take the self-paced version, because I want to do it in my own time. And I want to feel like, oh, not too much pressure, but I know that there are two types of people, or two sort of buckets. So I wanted to make two versions. You either work with me or you work on your own, but you're still learning the same things and you got the same activities going. And I also do recording sessions with people too. So if they just want to, get some video footage of themselves, we can do a recording session where it's kind of like this. We're on a call and I create clips from that for them. So that would be for the type of person that wants to have video footage, but they don't want to lift a finger and they don't have to do anything. All they do is show up to the call. I do all the research. I know about them. I have the questions ready to go for them, and they get videos out of it. So that's a very low effort on their part, because I'm doing all the work for that one. And then they get videos at the end. So now whether you post your videos or not, that's another thing, because that's the mental hump to get over for someone who chooses that.
Be okay with being uncomfortable, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be okay with being uncomfortable. Knowing that if you build an audience, that will feel like a safety net for you in many ways, in the mindset way, and also in the building a business way. Not worrying about what people think of you, because you have to get past that. You do have to get past the discomfort. I think there's always going to be something that's a little bit uncomfortable. It's like you unlock new layers. It's like a video game. You unlock new layers, you get to a different level. The stakes are higher, but you're more used to and comfortable with the things that you're experiencing. Yeah, I mean, I talk about mindset so much because it's such a big part of it, but that truly is the theme of today, is mindset and getting past whatever it is that's holding you back from sharing your talents and sharing what it is that you want to be doing with the world. Even if it's aiming for the moon, go aim for the moon, do it.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
If anyone wants to add me on LinkedIn, I am definitely a big supporter of people, especially when they're brand new. I love to cheer people on. If I see that you have a video out there and nobody has liked it yet, you better believe I'm going to be the first one in that comment section if I see it. So I definitely like to, prop people up and make them feel like they are doing something great, because they are. I think it's a lot to put yourself out there, and I'm always there to cheer people on that are doing that, especially for the first time.
Well, that's it. You guys heard it. Go follow Sara Berry on LinkedIn.
Yeah.